You get a cow and you boil it in a bath, or a half a swimming pool, and then at the end, when you've boiled it all, you're left with like a teaspoonful of jus.
Hi, I'm Chas Fisher.
And I'm Stu Willis.
And this is Draft Zero, a podcast where two Aussie filmmakers try to work out what makes great screenplays work.
And today we are joined by the inestimable, I can never say it, it's your word and I can't even say it.
Inestimable?
Yes, Stephen Cleary, once again, on Draft Zero.
Thank you, great to be here.
We are talking dialogue in films, and this may end up being part one of a two-part thing. On dialogue with Stephen, talking about the role of cinematic dialogue in films, and kind of I guess we're going to be starting in a way at the beginning, trying to lay some groundwork, a framework to think about dialogue, and we're going to be looking at the films Notting Hill, ANALYSE THIS, and The Avengers.
I'm really excited about this episode because Stephen, you've been running a series. You've got a whole dialogue workshop. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I've been doing it for a few years now, and I got interested in it. Actually, mainly because I became interested in, thinking about dialogue and wanting to find stuff out about it. So I went and looked for some books about it. And as ever with film practice, I was kind of very disappointed in what I could find. So you seem to get a lot of tips online, but the thing about online is always just 5 things to do this. Yeah. Whereas actually what it was a kind of detailed look at it, and there isn't really anything out there. So I kind of had to go away and start thinking about it and looking at it myself, really, and this is quite often the case with things that I do, because there isn't anywhere I can crib from. So I have to go and kind of do the hard yards myself in order to try and work out how it works.
What I really like about what we're going to talk about today is it feels like dialogue is one of those things that from the outside the perception is, either some writers do great dialogue and some writers don't, and it's something inherent and it's something that you can't teach tools to improve it. And I think today we're going to work through some stuff where it is like anything. I mean, I remember you had a different exercise on characters, and we've applied it a lot, that characters is not something that outside development people should be able to comment on. It's just the purview of the writer. And you in a lecture once said, if you just write down the list of decisions that character makes, then that is how the audience experiences the character, and that is something that you can look at externally and assess externally. And as a writer, it empowers you to address issues where your characters are not coming across the way that you want them to. So I'm excited to do the same thing with dialogue.
Absolutely. For me, I mean, I've always personally felt that dialogue is one of the weaker aspects of my writing, that I'm the structure guy and maybe have opinions about the structure of the dialogue, but generally because I work with co-writers, I kind of leave the dialogue to them. I mean, that makes...
Truth comes out.
The insecurity, I'll write stuff down, this is kind of what I want it to say. But I think, there is some people that just have a natural gift for dialogue. And in terms of character voice, often when I think we talk about writers with a gift for dialogue, it's either they've either got their own distinctive voice. So in Sorkin, everyone sounds like Sorkin characters, and in Tarantino, everyone kind of sounds like a Tarantino character. But even writers like Joss Whedon, which is why we did Avengers, he is very much about every character sounds the same. And
sounds the same or sounds different?
Sorry, sounds different.
Okay, all right.
And for me, that was something I felt insecure about, and having now done some of the dialogue workshop with you, I was like, I've got some tools to help me improve my dialogue. It's not, obviously, like all these tools, they're not necessarily generative tools, though hopefully we'll touch on some of that, but they are very analytical tools to help you rewrite dialogue.
And I think it's like most parts of writing, is that there are some people who are very good at it naturally, but you can work out what it is they're very good at. It's not like because they're very good at, you do get people who are better at instinctively writing dialogue. Their starting position is better than others. But that's not to say that then becomes a mystery, that you either have this gift or you don't. You can look at someone who's really good at dialogue and work out what it is that actually they're really good at, as opposed to saying, this is a mysterious skill that I can never master. Most writers have a strength and weaknesses. Most writers, if you ask them, would say, I think I'm better at this and that, and I always have trouble with this and whatever. Interestingly, when I work with writers, I quite often find they're wrong. That what the writer identifies as their weakness is not necessarily a weakness, and what they identify as their strength is not necessarily their strength. Quite often, when they strength and weakness, what they really mean is what I enjoy writing, what I don't enjoy writing.
What they're comfortable with?
Yeah, what they're comfortable with. And actually, quite often, writers are good at things they don't think they're good at, and not as brilliant as things that they think they are terrific at.
It's that, I can't remember the specific term, it's one of the cognitive biases, that by being good at, believing yourself to be good at something, you actually weaken your ability in it, because you become lazy.
Yeah.
You become biased to your own weaknesses, and if you believe you're weak in something, then you'll actually try to make up for a lot of the flaws.
I guess that's why most writers think they're weak at everything.
Subconsciously just saying we're brilliant.
So I guess where do we start?
If cinema dialogue is a kind of distinct beast from theatrical dialogue, what are its hallmarks? What did you find that?
Broadly speaking, and again, we're making huge generalizations across, but that's okay. It's never stopped us. It's never stopped us before. Broadly speaking, cinema dialogue is shorter. Much shorter. It's not just shorter in the sense the speeches tend to get shorter, so that a long speech, more than 10 lines on a screenplay, which is, 10 lines in a screenplay is not, a huge speech, is a huge lump of dialogue in cinema terms. But also, when you look at the number of syllables that you will find in an average cinema dialogue speech, it's unusual to get words of more than 3 syllables. Very unusual. 4-syllable words are quite startling in many, the vast majority of produced screenplays. It's a good indication of a difference between an unproduced cinema writer and a produced cinema writer, is that unproduced screenplays that you read by people who are wanting to be screenwriters will tend to have more 4 or 5-syllable words in the screenplay.
I'm going to go through and start culling them.
So everything is compressed. This is the kind of the point of it. It's compressed and it's highly stylized. Even what looks like naturalistic dialogue, when you look at it in comparison to the way that people speak and the kinds of words they use, it's very compressed and it's very stylized. And the point is, you're always driving towards simplicity. And that creates an effect in dialogue that I think is much more poetic than anything else. It kind of, what the object of cinema dialogue is to do is what poetry does, which is to suggest as much as to state. There's much more artifice in dialogue than people think. That's the point. And people think that if, for example, they understand how people really talk in real life and they want to write naturalistic dialogue, they kind of do that, then what you'll have is naturalistic dialogue, and you won't. That's not the
There's
dialogue.
Not enough ums and ers and
Naturalistic dialogue is a constructed thing. It's not anthropology. You don't go and record people on the bus and then reproduce what they say. You are creating an illusion of reality. And that's what dialogue is, in some sense. It's the illusion of speech. It's not a creation, an accurate depiction of how people speak. It's an illusion of speech that you persuade the audience is real, but in fact is absolutely artificial. And that's why there's so much craft and polish in the process.
And I remember when we were at film school and you came and lectured and you gave this example. I'm going to completely murder it, but you were basically talking about a husband and a wife driving home, and it was about dialogue, but you then just started layering context onto the story and backstory, and it got to the point where, because of all the different facts that the audience knew about this couple in this car, it didn't matter what they were talking about.
She was cheating. She was cheating on her husband. She didn't know that the husband knew that she was cheating on her husband. And so, yeah, we were basically placed in a position of superior, which is the Tarantino example. I mean, it's all that kind of dramatic irony. And then you basically said it doesn't matter what they're saying because it's going to be charged with all this meaning.
But that Tarantino example, if we talked about it while we were actually... Okay, so we were talking about, before we started recording, Inglourious Bastards and that scene in the Parisian cafe where the Jew hunter, and the girl, I can't remember her name. So they're there, and he's talking about the arrangements for the cinema screening and the strudel, and the audience knows that she's talking to the killer of her family and is terrified for her life. What's up to the audience and is kind of suggested but not stated is he might know and he might suspect or he might not. But regardless, it doesn't matter what they're talking about at all in the slightest. Which is not to say dialogue is completely irrelevant, but that there is...
There are two sides to dialogue. There's the underlying movement and mechanics of the story, that if you don't get this right, if you don't, for example, create scenes of dramatic irony, if you don't understand the movement of status in the scene and how characters are constantly playing status, if you don't create subtext in the way the scene is organized, we'll talk about all of those things maybe in a little more detail, then you don't have anything to build on. But on top of that, you then have, okay, we've done all that work, we've created subtext, we've got scenes of real import, the structure of the scene is worked out, we know where the action of the scene is going, we've done all that work. Now, how do these people actually talk? And now, if you haven't done that underlying work, your dialogue will be flat, no matter how good you are at, creating notions of character and a kind of poetic resonance in the way that it is, because the scene isn't resting on anything, and so the dialogue has no root. But as long as you've done that underlying work and the dialogue can dig down into that area, then on top of that, you then have to say, okay, well, how does this person speak, and how do I design or organize the way they talk to reflect the character? And how do I individuate this character in the scene versus another character? And that requires an understanding of, first of all, the character that you have. So what is the social context that this scene is taking place in? What is the education of this character? So what kinds of words would they use? What class are they from? What's their relationship to the other person in the scene? So if this is an older man talking to a younger woman, how does this man generally regard younger women in relation to himself and society? Does he regard them as something to be pushed around? Does he regard himself as innately superior? How is that expressed, not in bald terms like condescending sentences, but how is that expressed in terms of specific words they would use?
Sweetheart.
Exactly, that kind of thing where you put them. Does this man unconsciously express his high level of education when he's talking to people he thinks are not as important as he is? So will he use slightly more important words that he would not use if he was talking to a general? Where he would tend to simplify his language because he's talking to someone at least on his own level, possibly higher. So he would not want to be picked up because that person may turn around to him and say, why don't you use a simpler word in this context? Because there is that possibility that he's at a different kind of social level. So the social context of the character, the education they have, their class attitude, their gender attitude, all of these things inform the choices of the words the characters would use. And it's not just because you say, well, what word would they use? As the dialogue writer, you're saying, all the time I'm writing a dialogue, I'm reinforcing for the audience who my character is. So I'm going to use these words to illustrate the fact that he is of this social class, that he is of this generation. He does feel this way about younger people, particularly women. He does feel this way about himself, etc. So every line of dialogue the character uses is amplifying and informing the audience again and again, this is the character. And of course, for the actor, who scrutinizes every word is a clue to the character. So if you don't do that writing with the kind of concern necessary, then a good actor will want to change the line because it's not doing enough. It doesn't inform enough. It doesn't allow me to understand the character. And if you imagine as a writer, imagine if you sent your screenplay to an actor and there was no descriptive prose in it. It was like a theatre script, literally. So all the actor has to understand the character are the things they say. Then say, okay, if the actor read that script, would they understand who they were without having any introduction or context? Would they be able to work out, having read the entire script and their character, what social class this person was, what background they had, what kind of level of education they had, what they thought about things? If your dialogue doesn't do that, then you're not giving the actor enough to work with.
You think that's a good challenge of, I don't know, Final Draft or some other screenwriting software can do this, but just like taking the lines and the scene, take all the big print or the action out of a screenplay and just look at the dialogue and see the character you've constructed. It's
not uncommon. Judith Weston, who's an acting teacher but also directing actors teacher, I've mentioned her before, she actually says when you get a screenplay as a director or as an actor, just cross out all the big print. Just look at the dialogue to inform your character and all the parentheticals and all that stuff. Like specifically ignore everything but the dialogue to kind of get to the root of the character. So it's certainly something that people are taught to do as a way of engaging with character. So here, slight shift. we're obviously now talking about characterization, but there's other functions of dialogue. I mean, given maybe my interest in science fiction and thrillers, exposition is a big thing. And that's something we get asked about a lot. Like, how do you handle exposition? How do you make exposition good? And often dialogue is criticized as being too expository. What other kind of, I guess, maybe just trying to find out what good dialogue is, what are hallmarks of bad dialogue? Or is it one of those things that bad dialogue is not good dialogue? like which comes first, if that makes sense?
The trick to make dialogue always good, I would say, if you can, is to have subtext. Is to have a line where there are two things going on at any given moment. There's the meaning of what is being spoken, and there is the unspoken meaning of what is going on at that moment. So if you're trying to do exposition, if you want to have a character say, I don't know, the cheese is in the fridge. Okay, so we have to let the audience know the cheese is in the fridge. You have to create a context whereby when the character says the cheese is in the fridge, they mean something else. So for example, I don't know, it's a way of, you use it in a scene like that, where it's a way of a character kind of demeaning another character in the scene. So you have three people in the scene, and one guy is trying to seem clever in front of a girl, and so the other guy uses the fact that he knows the cheese is in the fridge to cut the other guy from under, cut his knees from under him. So when he says the cheese is in the fridge, two things happen. Firstly, the audience go, oh, the cheese is in the fridge. And secondly, the audience go, he doesn't like that guy. And as long as there's another thing under the surface, there's a as it were, subtextual meaning that the audience understands, then the line has dimension. And I think the trouble with exposition is not that it's exposition, but the trouble that exposition normally has in dialogue is that there's nothing else going on in the line. So that when it's delivered, it's just simply bald exposition. And that's the problem. It's not. There's nothing wrong in using exposition in dialogue. I mean, if you use it to excess, obviously then the writing is weak. But there's nothing inherently wrong in it, as long as you find a way of giving the line dimension and complexity, so that you give the audience something else to think about.
So maybe now is a good point for us to segue into Analyze This, the first of our scripts, because I think what you're kind of driving at, there's plot exposition, right, which is the stuff we need to know to keep the plot moving forward, but there's also kind of character exposition. We talk about revealing character, we're actually giving, in a way, we're revealing. Exposition is another word for revealing plot information, and characterization is another word for revealing character information. So maybe we should look at, because I think it's an early scene and it's clearly setting up both aspects.
Be your own man. Stand your ground. You don't have to let people roll over you. Hey,
Sobel?
Excuse me, we're in session here.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
I know you. You're the guy I hit last night.
Bingo. Get out of here. What? Upsy daisy. I got a coat on the bar.
Hey, what are you doing?
He's leaving.
To hell he is. He's not going anywhere till he's done with the session.
I'll give you $100 to get out of here.
Don't take it, Carl.
Make it $150.
Listen to me, sir.
300.
Carl.
You ain't that fucking crazy.
Doctor, you were right. I stood my ground. No, this was the wrong time. But I got him up from 150. I'm very proud of you.
I feel like a good man. Thank you.
I'm so happy. Listen, mister, I know you're upset about the car, but you can't come in here. This is a patient's private session.
You know me?
Yes.
No, you don't.
Okay.
You see my picture in the paper?
Yes.
No, you didn't.
I don't even get the paper.
Shelley, wait outside. Sit down. You ain't got no bugs in there, do you?
Bugs?
Bugs, recording equipment.
No, I don't record. I take notes. Mr. Vitti, I tried to give your friend the insurance information several times last night. Seriously, several times. He wouldn't take it. Please don't kill me.
I was just gonna ask you if you like Tony Bennett.
Yeah, I'm a big Tony Bennett fan. Yeah.
Me too.
I like all Italian singers. Mr. Vitti, I know it's not your fault, but don't you think we should just take this up with our insurance
Forget
companies?
about that. It ain't about that. I don't care about the car. I got a friend of mine. This friend of mine, he's got problems and he's gonna have to probably see a shrink. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions.
Oh, well, go ahead.
So, what do we do? We sit.
Whatever makes you comfortable.
Yeah, okay, I'll sit over here.
Sorry.
Sit here, right?
If you're comfortable, it's fine.
All right, so who starts?
Why Why don't you tell me why you think you need therapy?
I don't need therapy. I just told you that. It's for my friend.
I'm sorry.
You didn't hear me say that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You know, you guys, you're supposed to be so good at listening, you can't even remember what I said to you 2 seconds ago.
So sorry.
I gotta tell you, Doc, I ain't that thrilled with the level of service up to this point.
That was my fault. I apologize.
Yeah.
Why don't we start over and... Why don't you just tell me about your friend?
His friend, you know, he's a very powerful guy. Never had trouble dealing with nothing. Now all of a sudden he's like falling apart. He cries for no reason. He can't sleep. He can't be with his friends. All of a sudden he gets nervous around them. He wants to get away from them. And these are guys he knows his whole life, you know. It's like, and then he has like these like attacks, you know. He can't breathe. It's like gets dizzy, chest pains, you know. It's like he thinks he's gonna die or something.
Panic attacks.
What's it with you guys and all this fucking panic attack? Who said panic? Who said panic?
Not panic. Dizzy, chest breathing, constricting attacks.
Yeah. This guy just wants to know what he can do to make it stop.
Mr. Vitti, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I think your friend is you. Yo. You got a gift, my friend. You got a gift. Oh, yeah. You saw that there was something that I was trying to do, and you figured that out. That's why you are who you are. God bless you. You got a fucking gift. No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
I really don't.
Yes, you do. Go on.
What?
Go on.
Oh, I think medication could help.
Drugs? Can't do drugs. I don't do drugs.
Well, if you really want to get to the root of the problem, you're going to want to get some form of therapy.
Well, what, like with you or something, or?
Me? No, I don't think you want... My roster of patients is full. I'm just full right now, so... Plus, I'm leaving on a short vacation.
Where you going?
I don't share that with my patients.
Where you going?
Sheraton Bell Harbor Hotel in Miami Beach.
That wasn't so hard, was it?
No, it wasn't.
You know, it's a funny kind of a thing, but, you know, I feel better after I got all that off my chest. I feel like a load. A load is off my shoulders. You're good. Doc, thank you.
Mr. Vitti, I didn't do anything.
Oh, you did something?
No, I did nothing.
You did something?
I didn't
The load? Gone. Where is it? Don't know. You're good. Nah. You're good, Doc. You're good. I'm gonna be getting in touch with you.
Don't, please.
Oh, just one more thing. If I talk to you and you turn me into a fag, I'm gonna kill you. You understand?
Could we define fag? Because some feelings may
I
come
go
up.
fag, you die. Got it?
Got it.
Simple. Huh? You're good, Doc. You're good.
So this is what in in a rom-com is kind of the cute meet. It's a fizzy meeting. So the writer's job here is to throw the two characters together in an interesting way that's exciting and intriguing for the audience and makes them, by the end of the scene, thinking, crikey, where's this going to go now? So that's the general function of the scene. But it's very interesting because, first of all, it plays beautifully on status, which is something we'll be talking about, in that the choice is to have John Vitti, who is an extremely powerful mobster.
Robert De Niro, for those who are only hearing it.
Walking into the office of Ben Sobel. So it's Sobel's office. So it's as it were his territory, and it's the place where he should be most comfortable and most relaxed and have the most power. And what happens is this other person walks into his room and there's immediately a huge reversal. It does an interesting thing. It has a little prelude where you have this guy Jelly walk in and he throws out the patient in the room, and then John Vitti, Robert De Niro, walks in. And the decision in the scene again to have this little prelude is a kind of play on what's going to happen in a minute. Sobel is in his room and an intruder comes in and he deals with him or tries to deal with him, and then an even bigger intruder comes in. So rather than, it's a kind of little prelude, and it's quite funny because Ben is very active. When Sobel is very active. When the first intruder comes in, he's like, "Get out of here! You can't come in here. This is an office. There are things happening here." And he's very, very active, and he's talking a lot and being very assertive, and then as soon as Vitti comes in, this is, again, what half of dialogue is what people don't say. As soon as Vitti comes in, he stops talking. He goes from long sentences to short sentences. Now, looking at it afterwards, you think, well, this is really obvious, but actually it's not. You know, you could write this scene a number of different ways. You could have Sobel kind of jabbering when the man comes in and, you know, over-talking rather than under-talking. But it's to set up these long sentences which then go to short sentences, which then is, I'm talking about Sobel's sentences in the scene now. So they're long sentences which go to absolutely minimal sentences. Yes, no, he said.
I mean, it's interesting what you're talking about. I'm looking at the crossover from page 25 to 26, and it goes from Ben saying he's got a 3-line sentence to Jelly. Listen, if you're upset about your car, I can understand that, but you don't just barge in here. And then it it gets interrupted. Paul Vitti steps into the office. Ben freezes. Vitti asks, "You know who I am?" Ben says yes. Yeah. So like the transition is instant.
And what's interesting is it's kind of set up because Ben, when he's talking to Carl, his first patient, Ben is giving long flowing, almost flowing sentences. When he says a lot of comments, he's speaking a lot. And Carl is just like, "You're right, I do. You're right, I did. I don't know." We are seeing what a low status character plays in this scene, that they don't talk very much. And Ben's doing all the talking. And then Ben is basically put in the position of Carl. And we know that subconsciously because we've just seen it. We've just seen in this situation that status shift. So we have a high status character become a low status character.
If you took this scene and you took all the dialogue lines out and you said, instead of saying whatever the words are written on the page, just say mumble. So every word you say mumble. So it's mumble, 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 or mumble. And you played the scene, and you listened to it, you would hear the movement of status and power in the scene simply by the amount of the sounds they made. And this is the important thing to think about when you're writing your dialogue scenes, is there's a rhythm here. You know, there's an underlying sort of structural rhythm to the scene, which is that he starts off long, goes mumble, 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 then it goes mumble. So it goes mumble, 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 mumble. And then as the scene starts to develop and the relationship between the two characters gets more complex and Sobel starts to come more into the scene, he starts to speak longer sentences again. And so it goes from mumble, 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 mumble to mumble, mumble, and then mumble, 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 and at the end it's mumble, mumble. And so there's a rhythm. And what's the pleasure of the scene for the audience is not just what they're saying, but it's this appreciation of the rhythm. If you look at this scene in a different way, it's actually built around a pattern of threes, of repeated threes, are all the way through this scene. And it's rather like a song written at a particular time. If you look at the very beginning of the scene where Sobel is talking to his patient. And he says, "Carl, I'm detecting a pattern here. You seem to settle too easily for things." "You're right, I do." 1. "See, you did it again. I suggested something. You immediately agreed." "You're right, I did." 2. "Why do you think you do this?" "I don't know." 3. So it's long sentence, short reply, long sentence, short reply, long sentence, short reply. That's kind of the rhythms of it. I think it's then we have a sentence after that, which is you have these 3, which is long sentence, short reply, long sentence, short reply, long sentence, short reply, and then we have this sentence. I think it's, Carl, it's your fear of rejection or fear of disapproval, but you don't have to worry about that. Be your own man, stand your ground. Hey, don't let people roll over you. Okay, so you have a long, so it's long, short, long, short, long, short, long, long, long. And then at that point, bang, in comes the intruder. So at the point where the longest sentence in the scene up to this point is delivered, the intruder walks in and suddenly everything takes off again. Yeah. And it's, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And we're back into sort of shorter sentence. "Hey, Dr. Sobel, excuse me." "Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I know you." "Bingo," says Jelly. And it's like, it's back to percussive short words again. So it's kind of, you should think of it like a piece of jazz music or something. It's the rhythm and the movement of the language. And the vitality of the scene comes from that. And it's how often do writers think, okay, how many words do I have in these speeches? What if I vary the number of words? How many one-word sentences do I have in this scene? This scene is full of one-word sentences or two-word sentences. And that gives it a kind of dynamic movement because then you shift into longer sentences. So there's a kind of rhythmic movement underneath the scene. There's a music in the scene that doesn't matter who the characters are. I mean, you're creating this music in the way you're bringing the characters together. But the characters don't change because of the length of the sentences. But the writer is giving a kind of rhythmic, beating kind of patterns, the underlying movement of the language that gives it a bounce and a vitality. And this is what I mean about poetry. That this is what poets do. They understand the kind of the stresses, the number of syllables in a line, the variation of syllables, the movement between, the way that language has an innate rhythm, and the words you choose, and the sound of those words, not the meaning, the sound of the words, affects the way the rhythm plays. And that's how a poet writes. And as a dialogue writer, as well as all the stuff we have to do, there is also this underlying sense of the music of the scene, which in turn is modulated or affected by the music of the characters, the actual distinctive pattern of speaking that the characters have. And all of that is going on in the scene.
So how the distinctive voices of Ben and Vidi and Carl kind of created? Because we've got a repetition of that same kind of three structure with Vidi. You know me? Ben, yes. Vidi, no you don't. Okay. You see my picture in the papers? Yes. No you didn't. You've got that rhythm, the jazz kind of thing. But then how do we also build our understanding of character?
That's exactly what I was going to say, is going back to your earlier example about not just looking at what characters would say and how they talk, it's how they talk in relation to who they're talking to that I think creates a lot of characterization. And Jelly and Vidi, from a class point of view, are similar background. And usually Ben would consider himself above both those backgrounds. I'm educated, I'm non-violent, I'm civilized, I'm in a profession, And he plays that way to Jelly, who he thinks is just a guy he bumped with his car and is going to resolve that. Like, how do I talk to essentially, a lesser being? And then another version of Jelly comes in, but a version that is clearly higher powered than Ben, and so the way that he changes talking.
There's a great deal of going on in his what Sobel does, his characterization in dialogue. What Sobel does when Jelly walks in is he assumes Jelly is lower class than him. What happened was they banged into each other in the car the night before, and he thinks that Jelly is just some fat Italian American who drives a rather cheap car. And what he thinks is, because he's of a higher social class, and because he's in his own office and feeling comfortable, what he thinks is Jelly just doesn't understand. So when Jelly bursts in, he goes, what you don't understand is there's an office here and I'm doing things. And he's talking to Jelly, and it's like, it's slightly condescending. You being lower class and uneducated don't understand what a psychiatrist like me does. So I have to let you know that you can't simply walk in here and do this. And then Jelly amusingly gets out the money and says to the guy, how much money do you need to leave? And he raises his own status and changes the power dynamic around. But what Sobel is doing is he's trying to explain. He's explaining in an agitated way, but he's trying to explain because he believes the guy doesn't understand. As soon as Viti walks in, Sobel realizes his mistake, and everything about the way he speaks changes. But then what happens then is that how do we change that? How do we, as it were, inform the characters as John Vitti begins to approach the area that he is there to talk about, which is his own vulnerability. And this is what's lovely about the way the dialogue works, is that his sentences start to get longer, and he walks around. And this is the beautiful thing about the writing here, is the writer working out, okay, how do you move from a man who has an enormous amount of power, literally a man who walks in the room, and almost, I think the fourth sentence that Ben Sobel says is, please don't kill me. Okay, so if you have a man, when he walks into a room, people say, please don't kill me. How does that man relax a person enough in order to get them to be competent at their job in order that he can get his problem solved? So what Vitti is doing in the next few lines is he's trying to relax Sobel, and what's happening is that Sobel is taking a long time to relax. So when he says, there's some great lines, and you have this repeating of threes. There's this line, you ain't got no bugs in here, and he goes bugs, and then Vitti says again, bugs, recording equipment. Okay, it's three lines, da 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 da. There's a rhythm to the way he's speaking. That three rhythm is there, but it's within the lines themselves. And then Ben's sentences in reply to that is a longer sentence, because suddenly we're beginning to get into comfortable ground. So Ben is, no, I don't record. I take notes, and then I take notes. And then Mr. Vitti, I tried to give the guy the insurance information several times last night. Seriously, several times. He wouldn't take it. Please don't kill me. Okay, so you have this. He's beginning to try and expand, because he's trying to reestablish, his power, and he's trying to reestablish some kind of relationship. And again, it's still got this notion they don't understand. These Italian Americans, these lower class people, they don't get it. So he's talking about the car accident. He says, you don't understand. It's not important. Let me explain to you.
But do you think the longer sentences it's not because Ben's feeling more comfortable or more powerful or even trying to assert his power. It's almost a show of weakness that he starts babbling. He's trying to diffuse the situation. He does kind of babble, but again, it underlies this still is the essential nature of his character, which is that he believes he knows more than other people.
Yeah.
You know, and this whole film is about a guy who puts too much trust in intellect and education and has lost touch with his just basic emotional side. He's going to be forced to leave behind his education and his trust and everything, and he's going to be forced to speak their language. And that's, you know, he's going to literally speak the way that John Vitti speaks. He's going to talk like a mafiosi. And so this dialogue that he's being introduced to now, this way of speaking, which connotes a way of thinking, which is that, you know, it's more brutal and simpler. The world of the mafia in this film is brutal and simple compared to the world of a psychiatrist trying to work out, you know, the complexities of, you know, the human condition. But he's going to be forced into that world, and his language is going to be forced into that world too. And this is really important in the evolution of movement of characters through stories. We might look a little bit later, Richard Curtis, again, who plays in a completely different context, which is the context of people falling for each other, romantic relationships. That what happens is a romance is an exchange. You know, you reveal yourself to someone else. You give of yourself to someone else. And if you look at the way the dialogue works in these stories, the dialogue is given to each other. They start using each other's words and phrases. And again, in this story, where people are giving of themselves, John Vitti, whether he likes it or not, is going to have to, you know, get close to Sobel and Ben, and Ben's going to have to get close to Vitti, and that involves an exchange of language. And the dialogue will express, the movement towards each other is going to be expressed in the way they use each other's language. And you will have Vitti using psychiatric expressions in a way that's amusing. And similarly, Ben will do the same the other way.
So how does Ben in dialogue, Vitti, put Ben at his ease? I mean, like we've heard the scene and we can hear it, but is there anything we can take from it? The one thing that I'm noticing is for the first part of the session, Vitti's the one asking a lot of questions. Yeah. And then when they actually start the session, as it were, then Ben starts asking questions. And it's almost like you can say whoever's got the status is, I mean, it's not a general rule. People who have no power can be the ones asking all the questions. And it could be that the other person's exerting the power by refusing to answer. But it's almost like it's giving power by letting him speak, by giving him voice.
There's a few things around that to talk about. One of which is generally how useful and common it is in screenwriting to have scenes with questions. It's really unusual to find a powerful scene that doesn't have a lot of questions in it. And there's a reason for that, which is that a question demands an answer. So it, as it were, propels the story forward. As soon as you ask a question, if the question is answered, then you move into another area of the scene. So you're pulling the scene forward. If it's not answered, that in itself is an incident. Why is it not being answered? The fact that it's not being answered, if a character refuses to answer a question or avoids answering a question, it creates a subtextual question. Why is that character not answering that question? So a question is an incredibly dynamic kind of sentence to put into a script. And so in most screenplays, and most scenes of real power, you'll get a lot of questions. And it also connects the characters together. It kind of, you know, one person asks a question, the other then has to reply. And there's an obligation to reply, which means the scene has a momentum and a power within it. So in this scene, what happens is, as soon as they sit down and they start talking, when Vitti finally says, and this is the line he says, well, again, it's a long line. So he's stopped being, his short sentences have been all about, you know, I'm in control. And once Vitti has established control, he then relaxes. And then the problem he has to give up control because he has to give this guy the opportunity to be good at what he does. And so then Vitti says, it ain't about that. I don't care about the car. I've got a friend. Still short sentences, but it's a long speech. A lot of sentences in this speech. It ain't about that. I don't care about the car. I got a friend. This friend of mine, he's got problems, and he's like probably going to have to see a shrink. So I'm going to have to ask you a couple of questions. Okay, so suddenly we move to this long speech, and again, that in itself is a question. Is it okay if I ask you questions? And Sobel says, okay, go ahead. And then Vitti again, more questions. What do we do now? Do we sit? Whatever makes you comfortable. So he's giving the power to Ben. Ben is like, well, you do what you like, you know. And he's asking Ben, what do I do? And again, it's a question. I'll sit over here, make a cup of fire. And then the next section, which leads us up to the middle of the story,
is an interesting one because Ben is trying to be expansive and use long sentences and find out what he's doing, but Vitti is not yet entirely relaxed and he doesn't understand the world. And the thing that Ben, I keep calling him Max, but it's Ben. The thing that Ben is always trying to do is underneath everything, he thinks he's cleverer. And this is true. He is, in an intellectual sense, clever. He's better educated, and etc. He's not street smart like Vitti is, but he does have a better sense of what the problem that Vitti has is. And the whole scene turns on the inability of Ben to realize that being cleverer than someone else is not necessarily an advantage. And in fact, in this scene, being clever than anyone else is actually going to be the reason he loses, as it were, the scene. And so Ben says, and again, it's another question, why don't you tell me why you need therapy, when he sits him down? And Vitti comes back again, and that because the notion of therapy makes him feel insecure. I don't need therapy, I just told you that, it's my friend. Again, 3 sentences, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da. This is the rhythm of this scene at every level, across like 3 sentences in a speech, but also within a speech itself, there are like 1 sentence, I don't need therapy, 1. I just told you that, 2, it's my friend, 3. It's always in packets of 3 in this scene. And that's just the rhythm of this particular scene. There's no reason for it, there's no rule, but the writer has kind of understood that I'm going to drive this scene in rhythm in patterns of 3. And that's going to give it its underlying kind of unity. And he says, I'm sorry, you didn't hear me say that? Yeah, I'm sorry. You know you guys are supposed to be so good listening, you can't even remember what I said 2 seconds ago. Again, he's berating him for not listening properly 3 times. Okay, and then he goes, I'm sorry, I got to tell you, Doc, and then he changes the subject. I'm not thrilled to level service at this point. Vitti's re-establishing himself. Then Ben says, it was my fault, I apologise, and why don't we start over? Tell me about your friend. Okay, and then again, and then John Vitti then has to do a long speech. And of course, the longer the speech is, the longer a character has to talk, the more they must reveal. So as we want, I won't go through what the speech is too much, but as Vitti starts to unfold his problem, his speech gets longer because he has a problem to describe. The more you speak, the more vulnerability, the more you are vulnerable to an incisive question. Why do you think that? Why do you say that? These kinds of questions. And he's aware of that, and so he has to get himself in the position where he can say that. And then what Ben is doing is short sentences. So we've now gone from the short to the long, and Vitti, I'll just show you, this friend, he's had a very powerful guy, never had trouble dealing with nothing. Now all of a sudden he's like falling apart. He cries for no reason, he can't sleep, he can't be with his friends. There are, again, 3 different topics. He gets nervous around them, he wants to get away from them. And these people he's known all his life, and like he has these attacks, he can't breathe, it's like he gets dizzy, chest pains, it's like he's going to die or something. It's a very long, rambling speech. And Ben cuts it off. Panic attacks, says Ben, asserting his power. Okay, panic attacks. I'm a doctor, I know what it is. And Vitti doesn't like the notion of panic because it implies that he's not in control. And Vitti then jumps up and says, what's with all you guys, these fucking panic attacks? 1, who said panic? 2, who said panic? 3. Again, it's another three sentence kind of beat thing. And then Ben backtracks, not panic, dizzy chest breathing, constricting attacks. 3 replies. So in the beat of 3, the 3 accusing sentences get 3 excusing replies from Ben, which is an interchange. Yeah. They're now, as it were, playing the same song. They're both beating in 3s. So we've had these beats have been going backwards and forwards, and now, as they're beginning to connect as characters, the sentence rhythms are beginning to come together, and they're beating in the same way. And then Vitti, now he's relaxed. He says, and he makes the big confession. This guy wants to know what he can do to make it stop. Okay, and that length of that sentence, the sentence replies is, Mr. Vitti, I'm going to go out on a limb here, I think your friend is you. They're about the same length. So we've had these kind of short and long sentences, and now these sentences are kind of equalizing out. This is the point where the scene pivots. So the scene is going away from Vitti because he's got Sobel where he wants him. He's telling him his problem, and he wants Sobel to kind of take charge and deal with it, which is why he's come in the first place. And then he says, I think your friend is you, and then the scene kind of pivots around, and then there's a little bit of messing around, and then we get into the part where Sobel says, okay, well, if you want to get to the root of the problem, you're going to need some sort of therapy. And again, it's a long sentence, and Vitti's reply is, what, with you or something? Short sentence. So we've gone from the powerful person talking in short sentences to the weak person, and then longest, you see what I mean? And then it's gone to equal, and now it's turned around. So now,
but it's interesting, the reason why it's working so well on that front is because the characters, Ben, when he feels in control, he speaks longer. Yeah. When Vitti feels in control, he speaks shorter. For Vitti, speaking at long lengths is a display of vulnerability and weakness, whereas for Ben, speaking longer is his strength.
Probably
so they're contrasting.
Interestingly, probably for the same reasons, that this idea that the more you speak, the more you reveal. Ben speaks a lot because revealing stuff and being insightful is his job. Viti, it is exactly that. He doesn't want to reveal too much, keep his cards close to his chest. The other thing that strikes me, and you have been talking about this rule of three, but just how repetitive some of this dialogue is. It's on the page. You got a gift, my friend. You got a gift. Oh yeah, you got a fucking gift. I mean, it's very almost cliche. De Niro, are you talking to me? You're talking to me?
Yeah.
But I guess maybe there is this weird fear when you're editing your own dialogue that you can sit there and cross out the repetition because you're like, well, we've already said the line that, he's got a gift. Why do we need a whole stem of dialogue on it? And I think the rhythm things here is kind of, I guess, tools for us to understand why maybe we've got those, dialogue can be very instinctive on that first time you lay it down, that you're writing that rhythm, and some maybe you can, or at least I can, over-intellectualize and trim it back.
It is a trope in Italian-American characters. They do tend to talk repetitively. You're talking to me, you're talking to that kind of thing. And so part of the repetition in this scene is to do with the fact that it's an Italian-American gangster character. And the film is kind of a mocking parody of these kind of gangsters. And De Niro is playing a kind of character, a comic version of a character he's played lots of other times. So there is that, but it's also absolutely true that there is an enormous amount of repetition of words. And again, if you look at really powerful scenes of dialogue, there is an exchange of words, and that again is the way that you got a gift, no I don't, yes you do, no I don't, yes you do. This is backwards and forwards that it's going on, and the repetition of words is really important because as the scene plays out, the movement, the dynamic of power between the characters is moving around. So the way that a word is used and then repeated, it has a familiarity, but a difference of emphasis, a difference of context. So that, again, you get this all the time in good screenwriting, good dialogue writing, is that the scenes tend to rotate around one or two key words. And those words are, in Richard Curtis quite often is the thing. He says the thing, and characters talk about the thing. And that thing is passed around, as a sentence. There's a wonderful scene by Ruth Prowell-Jabber in The Remains of the Day, where the housekeeper, played by Emma Thompson, goes into Anthony Hopkins, the butler, Stevens' room, and she's flirting with him because their relationship is just the point where they might just, come together.
What are you reading?
A book.
It's what sort of book?
It's a book, Miss Kenton. Book.
What's the book? Are you shy about your book?
No.
Is it? Is it racy?
Racy?
Are you reading a racy book?
Do you think racy books are to be found on his lordship's shelves?
What do I know? What is it? Let me see it. Let me see your book.
Please leave me alone, Miss Kenton.
Why won't you show me your book?
This is my private time. You're invading it.
Oh, is that so?
Yes,
I'm invading your private time, am I?
yes.
What's in that book? Come on, let me see. Or are you protecting me? Is that what you're doing? Would I be shocked? Would it ruin my character? Let me see it.
And as this scene unfolds, book is like a caress that is passed between them, and it becomes full of sexual tension and symbolism, and it's repeated. Honestly, in the scene, it's something like 42 times in a scene of less than 2 minutes. It's 42 uses of the word book. Now, in normal life, nobody talks like that. No one ever watches that film. Nobody watches that film and watches that scene and says, no one talks like that. Okay, because that's not the point. People don't measure it by the kind of normal standards. What they understand is what the scene is telling them is if you want to know how much these people desire each other, what you want to know the level of suppressed tension in the scene, just look at how much they flirt with the word book. And book just becomes this kind of red, even the sound of it, book. It's just this little thing. It's like a tennis match, and they're batting or they're passing it to each other. And each time they pass it, it's a little bit more slowing, a bit more longing. And and the whole scene revolves around the exploration of the word book. And that's kind of like, again, a poem.
So one of the you referred to earlier when you were looking for something to crib off in terms of dialogue. One of those don't do dialogue things that I've come across a lot is a key to know that your scene has too much exposition is you've got one character asking questions and one character answering them all the time. Whereas we've seen this scene, it's almost an exchange of questions, constantly questions and answers, question and answers, but at no point does it feel like exposition. And partly it's because they're not talking about the plot, really. It's about, it's what they're talking about. So how do you know when you're using like a good use of questions and not
because in this scene, if you said, okay, if you look at the scene and said, okay, let's look at it from the perspective of the two characters. What does John Vitti want? John Vitti wants in this scene to have someone help him because he's having panic attacks. So what John Vitti wants is, and he's been recommended this therapist. So what John Vitti wants is this therapist to make him better. And then what does Ben Sobel want? Ben Sobel wants to get him out of the office. It's that simple. He wants to have nothing to do with him. Okay? And at no point in the scene does Ben Sobel talk about what he wants. Okay? But the audience understands straight away. From the moment John Vitti walks in, they know that Ben wants him out of there. Okay? But the scene has powerful subtext because we know what's under the surface, that Ben wants to get him out, and everything Ben is trying to do is about getting him to leave. And we know what Vitti wants, which is everything that he's about, is about getting himself in there in order to get what he wants. So the goals of the two characters are diametrically opposed. And the lovely consequence of the scene is that Ben eventually gets what he wants. Vitti leaves, but as he leaves, Vitti says two things. First of all, I am now going to employ you as my therapist. So his short-term goal to get him away has resulted in a long-term result of him being his therapist, so he's now tied to this man in a way that is a living nightmare for him. Second thing, as he leaves, the man, Vitti says to him, if I talk to you and you make me into a fag, I'm going to kill you. Do you understand? So, and the line that he comes back with, which is really, again, they're equal now, because the lines are about equal. He says, can we define fag? Because emotions make up. And, you're going to feel something, and if you feel anything and you think that means you're a fag, then I'm in trouble. So,
and then the button is simple. I go fag, you die. Got it. And I'm going to respond. I'm just going to point out, because it's interesting, there's a few of these. There's dialogue lines that end with questions that are like, you understand? Yeah. Like they turn a statement into a question to force the other character to respond. With
John Vitti, this thing about questions is that John Vitti, it's always about, it's about affirmation of power. I'm telling you this, do you understand me?
Yeah.
And it's like, and you're forcing the character to say, I understand you. And it's always about submission. It's forcing the character into a submissive position. And this is what people with power do. And again, given that he is who he is, this scene has to be constructed with questions, because that's how these people are. And if you don't have an accurate understanding of how someone with power coerces other people to obey them, it's about a constant reaffirmation of his power. So every time he asks a question, he knows full well this person understood it. It's not about, did you really understand me? What the question is about is, I demand now that you define me as superior. And the answer is, yes, I understand you. And that means, yes, I'm doing what you want me to do. And that's all about the underlying subtext of status, which is really what's going on in this scene, is like, how can a very high status individual reveal vulnerability? Because the very act of revealing vulnerability is, of course, reveals that it lowers your status. So how can this high status individual get into a room and escape? This is what he's thinking, having revealed vulnerability, having lowered his status. And the way you do that is you constantly push the status down of the person that you're with. So although I may be going lower, you're going lower still. But at the same time, the trouble that Vitti has is Max Sobel has to have high enough status to be comfortable enough to be a psychiatrist. Because if you're at the beginning of the scene, please don't kill me. He's not being a psychiatrist because he's in the fear of his life. When he says, Max Sobel says, do you like Tony Bennett? His reply is, Bennett's reply is, I love this, my favorite line in the whole scene. I like all Italian singers. It's whatever you want me to like, I will like.
And it's funnier because the whole thing is, it's exactly what he accused Carl of. That Carl, you always submit to anything that everyone says. And that's part of this secondary character. I mean, this is very violent, but this secondary character illuminates that half of the scene, because you could have had them almost beginning with them just walking in on the session with no setup. But that setup actually has payoff.
So to make the scene work, because we go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, you have to, as the writer, know two things. First of all, what's going on with the characters? So what are the dramatic elements? You know, well, in this scene, this character wants this thing. There is this character who is this other character. This character has to do this. This is his status position. This is the status position of the other character. How the status will move through the scene, which is how the power will move. All of those things are kind of what's the underlying, as it were, dramatic narrative that we're dealing with. And on top of that, you then say, okay, what is the music of John Vitti? Yeah. And this is where I would say that, you know, when you think about writing dialogue, there's an aspect of character, which is, for me, is that each character has their own sound. And that sound is expressed in the way that dialogue works. And so you're creating music. So you say, okay, John Vitti plays himself. He, as it were, talks his own soundtrack. And this is what it is. And it's full of threes and repetitions and questions. And that's kind of the way that we design. Design's too cynical a word. It's the way that we arrive at the sort of music of John Vitti. And then Max Sobel is on the other side. Max Sobel will talk in longer sentences. You know, he will have more qualifying clauses. Given a chance, when he's relaxed, he will become quite voluble. Vitti, when he's relaxed, doesn't talk much. It's just what and that's the difference. And, you know, and whatever situation they're in, they may be required to talk more or less, given the dynamics of the scene, but their natural music is that. You know, Max will tend to use longer words, Vitti will use shorter words. Max will tend to use qualifying adjectives, Vitti will tend to use no adjectives. You know, this is kind of, and it's the understanding. Now, some people, we talk about great dialogue writers, they just know that. They just
they don't even have to know.
Yeah, they don't think about the music. It's kind of natural to them. And that's why their dialogue sound really so well and sounds so good. But other writers, you can, just because you don't naturally do it, this is what you learn. And you say, and again, the more practice you do, the more the way you think about this and rewrite and whatever, the better your instinct is for understanding that. So when you come to create new characters in a story 6 months down the line or a year down the line, you'll already be thinking subconsciously about the music. You'll start to write these characters with their voices, with their, as I say, which I think is a kind of, I think each character has a kind of score. And if you look at certain very prominent kinds of characters, you can see that, you know, in, you know, you look in, you know, you're talking to me, that kind of character. Or if you look at, you know, Richard Curtis, Hugh Grant, romantic male character, this hesitant Englishman, you know.
Talk about you putting up like a little ball for us to like tap ping pong into in Notting Hill.
Can I go pee before we...
Hi.
Hello.
You disappeared.
Yeah. I had to leave. I didn't want to disturb.
How have you been?
Fine. I don't know, everything much the same, you know. When they change the law, Spike and I will marry immediately. Whereas you, I've watched in wonder. Awards, glory.
Oh, no, it's all nonsense, believe me. I had no idea how much nonsense it was, but nonsense it all is. Well, yesterday was our last day of filming, so I'm leaving. But I brought this for you from home, so I thought I'd give it to you.
Thank you. Shall I?
Oh, no, don't open it now. I'll be embarrassed.
Well, thank you. I don't know what it's for, but thanks anyways.
I actually had it in my apartment, and I thought you'd... But when it came to it, I didn't know how to call, having behaved so badly. Twice. So it's just been sitting in the hotel. Then you came, and I figured... The thing is...
What? What is the thing? Don't even think about it. Go away immediately. Go away.
Right. Sorry.
You were saying?
Yes. I have to go away today, but I wondered if I didn't, whether you might let me see you a little Or a lot, maybe. See if you could like me again.
But yesterday that actor asked you who I was and you just dismissed me out of hand. I heard. You had a microphone, I had headphones.
Well, you expect me to tell the truth about my life to the most indiscreet man in England?
Excuse me, it's your mother on the phone.
Will you tell her I'll bring her back?
I've actually tried that tack, but she said you said that once before, and it's now been about 24 hours, and the foot that was purple is now sort of blackish in colour. And
Right, yeah. Perfect timing, as ever. Martin, hold the fort a second.
Yes, all right. Could I just say, I thought Ghost was the most wonderful film.
Is that right?
Oh, yes. I've always wondered what Patrick Swayze is like in real life.
I can't say that I know Patrick all that well.
What, he wasn't that friendly during filming?
Well, I'm sure he was friendly to Demi Moore, who acted with him in Ghost.
Oh. Oh, right. Sorry. Right. Always been a bit of an ass. Anyway, well, it was lovely to meet you. I'm a huge fan of yours. And Demi's, of course.
Sorry.
It's fine. There's always a pause when the jury goes out to consider their verdict.
Anna, look, I'm a fairly level-headed bloke. Not often in and out of love. But, can I just say no to your kind request and leave it at that?
Yes. Fine, of course, Of course. Well, I'll just be going. Then it was nice to see you.
The thing is, with you, I'm in real danger. It seems like a perfect situation, apart from that foul temper of yours. But my relatively inexperienced heart would, I fear, not recover if I was once again cast aside, as I would absolutely expect to be. There are just too many pictures of you, too many films. You know, you'd go and I'd be, well, buggered, basically.
That really is a real no, isn't it?
I live in Notting Hill, you live in Beverly Hills. Everyone in the world knows who you are. My mother has trouble remembering my name.
Fine. Fine. Good decision. Good decision. The fame thing isn't really real, you know. And don't forget, I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
Before we go into Notting Hill, I'm just going to make a slight digression. I mean, it will tie into this, I think.
You're doing a Chas. You're like smacking the segue down.
No, let me finish. Which is because I was almost going to dive into the same comment about questions as you, but from a different perspective, right? Which was when I was doing improv, one of the things that you were taught in improv is no questions, right? The idea that, because I guess it's an improv thing, naturally people will almost shoot down the reality of the scene that you're trying to create by asking questions. Oh my God, we're on the moon. Why are we on the moon? and like the scene falls flat. Whereas if you get rid of questions, people have to accept the reality of the world that you're building in improv, right? So a technique that I've occasionally done when I've struggled with the scene is I sit there and try to rewrite it where it's like the opposite of a game of questions. It's a game of statements. And how does the scene feel if it's a game of statements? And sometimes and you're like, no, you need those questions because sometimes there's no motivation for characters to answer each other. But there's other moments where it's informative. It's like, that's really interesting if this character is compelled to say something and there's no question to leave them.
It depends on the power status. Because I saw the opening episode of season 3 of Please Like Me last night, which fantastic show. I really love it. But there's a 3-way Skype conversation between these 3 friends, and they're each taking turns to say sentences, but it's them telling their own story or possibly asking a question, but it's totally unrelated to the line that went before. It's basically revealing 3 very self-involved people talking in the same room, but not having a conversation, really. But that's because they all have equal status and they all feel very comfortable with each other, and that's their dynamic. So you're saying something by having the lack of questions and the lack of involvement, that they're all just there sort of spouting at each other. Whereas this scene, the questions are all about letting you get from the structural point of view of how do you get a man terrified for his life to take on a mobster for therapy. But you need questions in that.
And given we've segued into Notting Hill, I think it's an interesting contrast with Anna and William because they don't ask questions as much. They are kind of finishing, even if you just look at it on the page, there's a lot of ellipses. There's a lot of people, they're kind of picking out where the other one lets go, that they don't need. Maybe it's because, it's so late in the film. We're as you would have heard, it's the famous scene. And maybe that's why, that's interesting looking at specifically the example in my head where I was saying I was trying to rewrite a scene without questions and it didn't work. It's because it was one of the early scenes where we're introduced to our characters. You need them to guide the audience in. Here, it's actually revealing a lot of character, I guess.
But they're on as equal footing as it's at the end of the film. They've done their journeys, they've come together.
Dynamically, in terms of status, it's interesting because you have this incredibly famous person coming to the house or the workplace of an incredibly insignificant person. But the point is that the reversal is that this incredibly famous person has actually come to declare her love to the incredibly to the non-entity. So there's a huge kind of underlying reversal here, and at the same time they have to negotiate a point where she feels comfortable enough to say what she has to say. So again, it's like this woman has come into this man and she's about to tell him that she loves him and she wants to be with him. And so, but at what point does a character like her feel comfortable enough to do that? And it's not necessarily just comfort. It's also at what point there comes a point in the scene where she's almost running out of time, where she can't mess around for very much longer. But what's also interesting about this scene, I think, and something that Richard Curtis does a lot, is that the language, the thing about a love story is that, as we all know in these kind of romances, the fact is they love each other from the moment they see each other. The whole story, and this is the big problem of writing romances, is creating a series of manufactured circumstances that stop the people from being together. That's really the big problem of a romance writer is, she comes to his house at the beginning of the film and she goes out and she comes back in his house because she left a bag there and she suddenly jumps on him. She kisses him. Well, she obviously feels something very powerful for him, and then the next time she sees him, she invites herself to dinner and she kisses him in the park. So she obviously really loves him, or has fallen for him. So the problem is, how do we stop them? How do we stop them just going, wow, this is really good. We like each other. Should we go out? Yeah. And they go, yeah. Should we get married? Oh yeah. Okay. So you have to. The plot has to get in the way. This is the interesting thing. The characters have an inbuilt, as it were, destiny, which is that they are going to be together.
But do you think part of the plot that gets in the way can be the characters, that the characters have to get over elements of themselves in order for them to be together? They
have to overcome, a series of external obstacles, and then famously in the kind of second half of the second act, those internal obstacles come out. But in fact, in a funny way, because this is a romance, and because it's kind of a generic pattern, a structure that we all know, they are destined to be together. No one seriously thinks at any point in the story that these people aren't going to be together. So the couple is already together. It's just a question of how long they take to work it out, to realize that. And in these kinds of stories, very often Richard Curtis has the language of the dialogue of the characters, of the lovers, already exchanging, already being very self-similar. So that the way they talk to each other, they're using the same kind of words, the same kind of sentence construction, the same kind of vocabulary. Even though they're not together, their language is together. And it kind of, in some sense, undercuts what the characters are doing, because the characters are, as a way, carefully trying not to be together, because they're not prepared to admit things or the circumstances are stopping them. But their language is saying all the time, these two people are really the same person.
But you're talking about at this end point of the film. So
Even at the beginning,
Okay.
it's lesser, but the longer the story goes on, the more you see these kind of patterns of speech. That there's a line in this scene where Anna says, she asks, "How have you been?" And William says, "Everything much the same. When they change the law, Spike and I'll marry immediately. Whereas you, I've watched in wonder, awards glory." And she replies, "Oh no, it's all nonsense. Believe me. I had no idea how much nonsense it all was, but nonsense it all is." Now, there is no American in the world that would ever use a sentence, "but nonsense it all is." Okay, this is William's dialogue. She's talking like him.
I mean, even just looking at the page, the Anna part has a lot more ellipses in it. It has a lot more Hugh Grant pauses and stutters and rephrasing.
Because, the reason that Hugh Grant famously in all of these films stutters and pauses is because the character is not admitting the truth to themselves. That's the character. And in these films, when the character admits the truth to themselves, they get married, they talk in shorter sentences, and the film is over. And things become more direct, and it's really interesting.
Love it if that's the synopsis of the story. They speak in shorter sentences and they get married and the story's all over.
But the point that the reason they're speaking in longer sentences is because they're not speaking the truth. In these scenes, when the characters actually speak the truth, their language simplifies. And as soon as they start lying to other people or to themselves about their own emotional responses, the language becomes complex. So the language is like in these stories, the Richard Curtis scripts very often, the language is like a smokescreen. Is when a character doesn't want anyone to know what they're feeling, they speak a lot. When they want to say what they're feeling and they're honest, that the amount of words they say and the way it's constructed become much simpler.
I mean, look at Anna's kind of little justification for why she brought the painting, which is, actually I had it in my apartment in New York, and I just thought but when it came to it, I didn't know how having that so badly twice. That's a total Hugh Grant speech, but it is her kind of justifying that. Basically, I came out with an excuse to come and see you by giving you a really expensive original. But it's also, it's a visual example of the very thing you're talking about. She saw him having a print of that painting, so she's bought him the original to build a connection between them. William responds to Anna with, "What's the thing?" And this ties into what you're saying about the thing.
Yeah. And the thing is, what's the thing? And it's like, and this is Anna, if you look at the construction of the next thing, she says, the thing is, pause, change of emphasis. I have to go away today, but I wondered if I didn't, whether you might let me see you a bit or a lot, maybe, see if you could like me again. And again, this is this kind of, she's not, what she should say, or what, and what we know, again, subtextually, what the audience understands, I love you, I want to be with you. That's all she needs to say. But because she's not yet at the point in the scene where she has the courage to say precisely what she wants, she's kind of suggesting. And then William, again, it's just, again, he replies, "But yesterday that actor asked you who I was, and you dismissed me out of hand. I heard you had a microphone, I had headphones." And again, it's this kind of gentle, meandering kind of conversation. Then Anna comes in with this line, "You expect me to tell the truth about my life to the most indiscreet man in England." Bang, that's the truth. This is an actress who knows that you can't say things unguardedly because your life can be made a mess of. And
there's no pauses.
There's no pause, there's no complexity. It's like a simple sentence, it's extremely direct because she's talking the truth. Then we have, and it's interesting in this scene, another interruption. In the same way in the previous scene we looked at, you have a prelude, which is the guy being treated by Carl before John Vitti comes in. In this scene we have, and this is really, I think, again, interesting because if you ask the question, why is this scene written in such a way where you have, it's a very chatty scene, there's a lot of dialogue in it, and quite a lot of the scene is taken up with this kind of effete assistant who is kind of slightly awkward and gauche, making kind of lots of mistakes. And partly it's because this scene is so sweet that if you wrote it flat, it's one of these things. It's almost impossible to write because basically you've got one lover coming to another lover, and if you're not Shakespeare, just to get through this scene without the audience going, "Pass me the sick bag," it's really, really hard because it's all corn. So partly it's like, where's the lemon? How do I put a twist in the scene in order to give it a bit of difference and to dilute the sugar? And so he dilutes it with it's kind of like the tonic water, if you like, in the scene is this character who just says a number of stupid things, and there's another interrupting character who is the customer who comes in, who he throws out.
And I was going to bring that up because it's really interesting because Anna is rambling but William, when the Mr. Smith comes in, William speaks directly into the truth, which is don't even think about it, go away immediately.
But the interruption happens right as William says, "What's the thing?" He's prompted her to...
And he wants to hear the answer, but it shows that he wants her to stay. Yeah. And but he can only give the truth to that customer, which is, piss off. I want to hear what she has to say. And so, because it's one of those little moments. It's a great laugh, but it reveals character and reveals that he has this underlying desire to hear what Anna has to say, even though he's saying, we're breaking up. Well, breaking up, I don't want to see, or he's going to say.
Both of these scenes also have an example of something. It's something that you said to me a long time ago, Stephen, but it stayed with me, is that when you actually have a character say their truth, like say something without subtext, they actually relinquish power often to whoever they're talking to. And we saw it in the Vitti and Ben Sobel scene just before. Ben Sobel, when he says, "Please don't kill me," he's like giving up power to Vitti by saying that. And then when Vitti admits that he wants therapy, he's giving power back to Max. And it's the same thing here, that as soon as Anna actually gets to the truth of what she's saying in the scene, that's when William has all the power in the scene to say.
And so what you're doing if you're writing the scene, firstly, it's the big scene, so you don't want to waste it. Also, it's really hard to write and not make it too sweet because it's really just a love declaration scene. You have this little guy who interrupts, and that allows. And the other thing to look about is the rhythm of it, because we have William and Anna who come in, and it's a little bit dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, hesitant sentence, hesitant qualifying clause, ellipsis, hesitant sentence, and he replies in the same way. And then we have this little man Martin, who comes in, and again, when he starts talking to Anna, he says that your mother's on the phone, and William, Hugh Grant, leaves. And then we have this little exchange with Martin and Anna, which is, "Can I just say that Ghost was a wonderful film? Is that right?" says Anna. "Yes, I've always wondered what Patrick Swayze is like in real life," he asks. "I can't say I know Patrick all that well." "Oh dear, he wasn't friendly during filming?" Suddenly we got questions. Okay, in a story, in a scene that hasn't got short sentences, question response. So suddenly the rhythm of the scene picks up. So we've had this kind of two people kind of like meandering because they're not able to directly approach the truth. And then we have Martin, who's an idiot, but he wants to know something straightforward. And so the scene suddenly goes dunk, 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 and starts to chunk through. So the pace of the scene picks up because the dialogue is driving the scene forward. And then we get out of that. Then there's a funny gag line because he's made a mistake, and it's not Anna he's talking about anyway. And then Martin leaves, and William comes back, and it's like we restart the scene. And it's really interesting that this decision that the writer has made to throw in this sort of series of funny lines, which are short and abbreviated. So again, it's picked up the kind of comic rhythm of the scene. It's taken us away from the sweetness of the romance and brought us back as it's a romantic comedy, and this scene is divided into romance and comedy. And so we have the romance, then we go to the comedy, and we go back to the romance. And there's no comedy in what Anna and Will are talking about. There's no comedy, there's no laughing in what they're saying. But there's humour in the middle, and the humour is abbreviated and fast. So we drive the scene through. And then we get, and again, when he comes out, William says, "Sorry about that." And Anna says, again, quite straightforwardly, she's waiting, she wants to know what he's going to say to her when she said, "I want to be with you." That's fine. There's always a pause when the jury goes out to consider its verdict. And then William's reply, and again, look at how, when he's not telling the truth to himself, and that's the point, look at his dialogue. "Anna, look, I'm a fairly level-headed bloke, not often and out of love, but can I just say no to your kind request and leave it at that?"
I mean, you've missed out what it says in the big print, what Richard Curtis says to the reader. He can't really express what he feels.
And it's like, the reason he can't express what he feels is because he's lying. What he feels is that he loves her. This is the whole point. The point of this scene is that, as we know, he's destined to be with her. Okay, the force of love is working on him, but he's not admitting it because of his own preoccupations with his own past and his inability to have a successful relationship with women, etc. So there are good, strong character reasons for his hesitation. But his dialogue is casting around for a kind of route. It's drifting. Can I just say no to your kind request and leave it at that? It's just a kind of drifting, meandering kind of sentence.
He doesn't say no, thank you.
He doesn't say no, or you're wrong. And then he says, yes, that's fine. Then Anna says, of course, of course, I'll just... And she's staggered because he's turned her down. So this is just a kind of... She's dazed at this point. And this is then William says, and this is what I love about this scene, the truth is, okay, he's not about to tell her the truth. He's about to give her a list of excuses that he's making for not being able to cope with the fact that she makes him feel very strongly about things. And he's been so cut off from the world for so long, the fact that she makes him feel emotionally alive, and then the dialogue is expressing that. The truth is, with you, I'm in real danger. It looks like a perfect situation apart from that foul temper of yours, but, and this is the key phrase, listen to this, but my relatively inexperienced heart would, I fear, not recover if I was once again cast aside, which I would absolutely expect to be. Okay, how often have you ever seen a line like that heard it in a screenplay? Okay, it's like, and it's beautiful because it's bogus. It's just nonsense, and it's just the way that the sentence is constructed. The audience just goes, "This is bullshit, isn't it?" They know this is nonsense. Whatever he's saying, he's lying. It's just not true. My relatively inexperienced heart. He's talking about love. He's talking about strong, powerful emotions that define our lives. But he says, my relatively inexperienced heart would, I fear, not recover if I was once again cast aside. He's talking like an 18th century. He's like bloody Sheridan. It's not. He's not talking like a modern person. He's avoiding everything, and the dialogue is as a complete smokescreen. You be go and I be buggered, basically. I see. And then he goes into a series of, again, quick rhythm. I live in Notting Hill, you live in Beverly Hills. Everyone in the world knows who you are. My mother has trouble remembering my name. It's like he's talking in couplets. Even
buggered, basically. I mean, that's the alliteration and the repetition, and it's a great way. You got all that rambly thing, and then the short sounds of the buggered, basically, kind of caps it or tops it or whatever you want it is.
And she says, okay, fine, good decision, she says. Good decision is one of these repeated phrases that you get, again, often in screenwriting and dialogue. Good decision, the line good decision, or the phrase good decision, occurs about 4 times in Notting Hill at different points. The last time Anna said good decision was when she was in her hotel room and she'd taken William back to her room to have sex with him, and her boyfriend unexpectedly turned up from America, and he said, hey, I've turned up from America unexpectedly. Is that a good decision or not? And Anna went, yes, good decision. That's the last time she said those words, good decision. So there are key moments in the story when the phrase good decision comes out. Again, the writer has thought, in my dialogue, what are the lines, the words I'm going to use, the key moments that repeat, that the audience go, okay, that's, and again, it works subconsciously. The audience don't necessarily notice, the last time she said good decision was, but good decision appears at pivotal moments in the emotional evolution of Anna Scott in the film. They're kind of like they're milestones in the movement of the story.
And it's echoed by William's friend Bella not long after, like actually the next page of the script, when she's like, good decision. All actresses are mad as snakes. And I think and William ends that subsequent scene with I've made the wrong decision, haven't I? I mean, this is making it all pretty overt and obvious for the audience. There's no...
But mostly they don't notice it because they're so caught up in the characters and the story. But when you go back again, you do notice it. But of course, then the scene finishes very famously with the absolute simplicity of what Anna says. The fame thing isn't really real, Don't forget, I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her. Okay, firstly, it's in 3s. I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her. The rhythm of it. Okay, it's poetry. Okay, in the sense that you don't for a moment think that the writer hasn't aware of the stresses of the syllables that when you say that. Okay, so it's in 3s and it's the same. The syllable stress are the same. I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her. It's just a rhythmic phrase, and part of the rest, people go, oh wow, that's great, that line, that really is a killer line in the cinema when it first comes out, and people go, oh, whatever. The power of it is not just that she's speaking straightforwardly the truth. That's exactly what she is. And so at this absolutely pivotal moment in her life, the character makes the simplest description possible of what she is, but it's also rhythmically elegant. There's an elegance to the construction of the dialogue that matches the kind of sincerity and truthfulness of what she's saying. And that together, and this is the point, he's constructed the scene in a beautiful way to make the kind of resonant final line, the kind of killer line, work in the way that it needs to. But he's also, that's the kind of underlying stuff we're talking about. You've got to have the structure and you've got to know what you're doing in the scene. But when you get to the line, you've got to have a beauty in the way it's written. And that's not to do with the underlying stuff. That's, okay, what words do I choose? What rhythm do they have? And how simple or complex are they? How does the punctuation work? All those different things come together. And then you have this kind of line, which, it's a cliche now. It's so worn and used. But, I have played romantic comedies. I was saying this the other week. I was once in Belarus or somewhere like this, in a room full of hairy-ass bikers. And I played them the first half hour of Sleepless in Seattle. There's a great line in Sleepless in Seattle where his kid phones up the radio station because his dad is lonely because his wife has died. And he talks to the radio DJ on Christmas Eve. And she says, "Tell me about your wife." And again, it's fantastic because it's so simple. And he sits down and he says, "She made everything beautiful." It's 4 words. She made everything beautiful. And it's just absolutely slays you when you hear it the first time. Because it's exactly what the character feels and thinks. There's no complexity. There's a nice, she made everything beautiful. It's a nice flow to the line. And the truthfulness kills. And I stopped the film and turned the lights on, and all these very bikers had tears coursing down their cheeks. And that was from reading subtitles. From half of them didn't speak English. So it's when you get this kind of simple stuff right, it cuts to the kind of heart of the audience and also the character.
But trying to find some, I guess, tools for people to analyze and improve their own writing. I guess one of the things would be to look for, like, in a scene of any reasonable length, like more than half a page, do you have differences in rhythm? Like, do you have two characters speaking in different rhythms, or do you have, like we've got in this example, where they've introduced the interruptions just to change up the rhythm of the scene because you had two characters talking the same way. And with Analyze This, you had, the
inverse,
depending on who was talking to who in those different movements of the scene, there were different rhythms to it. Whether it was question and answer or question and non-answer, or
it depends where the characters are in the story and what their relationship is. That's the point. The dialogue is where matches or plays off that. So in that example I gave before from Remains of the Day, this thing about the book, that's very flirty. Because they're kind of at the point in their relationship where they're either going to kiss each other or they don't. And what happens in the scene is they don't. And that is the closest these two ever come to being together. And so at that point, as it were, their status is, he's a housekeeper, she's a housekeeper, he's a butler. He's slightly higher status than her. And this is a very stratified world the story's in. It's in the world of the downstairs of an English country house. So that status does make a difference. But she walks into his room. He allows her in. He doesn't doesn't say, "What are you doing here?" or whatever. She brings flowers. The scene starts. She brings flowers into his room. So she's, as it were, bringing the feminine into this very male world. And it's kind of, the whole scene is about, okay, this could be the synthesis of male and female. This is the pivotal moment. And they're absolutely equal. And so then there isn't an opposition. It's a short scene because they don't want to introduce other elements. And so essentially they're just exchanging. And it's the same rough length of sentences, the same vocabulary. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin. And then at the end of the film, at the end of the scene rather, he rejects her. And you have this really simple language all the way through the scene. And then he says a line which is something like, "I read these books in order to broaden and widen my education." And suddenly his language is formal and completely different. And that signals the break he's decided to make. He's not going to be her partner. And the language expresses that formality, makes a retreat. And it's also an affirmation of status. I am an educated man who reads books in order to educate myself. I'm not prey to silly emotions like women have. So that's kind of what he does to pull off. But in that scene, it's not it's competitive. The dialogue isn't working in a competitive way. It's complementary. And it's complementary because they are kind of together, and only until the end of the scene where they kind of fracture. And if you have characters who are very close to each other, and the dialogue is not competitive or it's not exchanging so much. That line in Blues Brothers, where there's a tiny line in Blues Brothers I really like, where They look at where Jake Elwood looks at the back of the car and the cops are behind them, and there's the two of them, and each one says one word, and it's a scene where the dialogue is only one word each, and he goes, shit, what, rollers, yeah, shit. That's the scene. And it's just, and again, the scene is all about rhythm. It's just about shit, what, rollers, yeah, shit. You know, but neither of them says more than one word because they're completely on the same level. They both, as with Jake and Elwood, are completely together. They are essentially, literally, brothers. And there's you couldn't put a cigarette paper between them. So their dialogue is almost identical. And again, that expresses that kind of closeness and relationship that they have.
Shall we now try and apply what we've learned to
Avengers.
the ticking time bomb of the Avengers?
Scene of the first Avengers.
Which we've chosen for a number of reasons, because first of all, it's a crowd scene, so there's multiple competing interests, not just two people talking to each other. It's
very similar status characters.
Yep, and it's at a point in the film where it's having to do some heavy lifting for, plot isn't the right word, but the characters all have to be at a different place at the end of this scene than they were at the beginning, with only dialogue happening. So the dialogue is having to move the characterization and the relationships between these characters along. So this movement is resting in the dialogue and the interrelation between the characters, not on, plot intervening. So, Stephen, I'm very excited to watch your reactions to this.
Speak of control, yet you court chaos.
This is MO, isn't it? No, what are we, a team? No. We're a chemical mixture that makes chaos. We're a time bomb.
You need to step away.
Why shouldn't the guy let off a little steam?
You know damn well why. Back off.
Oh, I'm starting to want you to make me.
Yeah. Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
I know guys with none of that worth 10 of you. I've seen the footage. The only thing you really fight for is yourself. You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play, to lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you.
I think I would just cut the wire.
Always a way out. You know, you may not be a threat, but you better stop pretending to be a hero.
A hero? Like you? You're a laboratory experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle.
Put on the suit. Let's go a few rounds.
You people are so petty and tiny.
Yeah, this is a team.
Agent Romanoff, would you escort Dr. Banner back to his room?
Where? You rented my room.
The cell was just
in case you needed to kill me, but you can't. I know, I tried. I got low. I didn't see an end, so I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out. So I moved on. I focused on helping other people. I was good until you dragged me back into this freak show and put everyone here at risk. You want to know my secret, Agent Romanoff? You want to know how I stay calm?
Dr. Banner, put down the scepter. Got it.
Sorry, kids, you don't get to see my party trick after all.
Located the Tesseract.
I could get there faster.
Tesseract belongs on Asgard. No human is a match for it.
You're not going alone. You gonna stop me?
Put on the suit. Let's find out.
I'm not afraid to hit an old man.
Put on the suit.
Oh my God.
I mean, we're talking about dialogue, but it's just a good piece of big print that sets up the scene before they go into the dialogue. Is back in the lab, the egos of these people keep rubbing off each other, and at any moment the shit will hit the fan. And that's all they do to set up the scene and then go into the dialogue. And it is interesting how you can use that kind of, I guess, big print to interpret dialogue and just go into it. Because there's some action lines, but there's more parentheticals in this in terms of the actions to keep the emphasis on the dialogue. Tony puts his arm around Steve. Steve pushes Tony off. Tony comes face to face with Cap. It's just the little bits of action, just trying to keep, I guess, the eye focused on the dialogue and reading through the stems. I mean, that's just a pure
blocking, staging,
formatting, blocking, staging. It is. It's blocking, but it's also just a I mean, you know, it's not going to make your craft any better, but
let's set the, like, what's going on underneath this scene so that we can see what, if anything, is successfully being done in the dialogue. So the Avengers have assembled, as it were, but they're all still individuals in the room, and Nick Fury wants them to all come together.
As a team!
Yeah, and Banner is pointing that out expressly in dialogue, and then there is Steve Rogers pointing out, it's almost like creating a character arc in dialogue, which is why I think it does play a little corny and wrong, but, you know, saying you're not the one to make the sacrifice play, whereas the film ends with Tony Stark, you know,
sacrificing himself.
Yeah, for the good of the world. So that's what I mean about heavy lifting, in terms of it is providing exposition, but it's providing character exposition, not plot exposition. Which I think that's often a challenge for me in my writing, is there are these, you know, you were supposed to put these characters through these arcs, and sometimes you want to reinforce what you've dramatized with, like, people saying in dialogue, what is that character's problem? What are they going to have to overcome? Just like spelling it out for the audience, as has happened here. So do they successfully... Oh, and the other thing I guess we're looking at, but Whedon does it really well here, is characterization. Making, just in dialogue, like you said, Stu, if you took all the characters' names away from this, you would have a very strong feeling for who's talking.
I wonder if that's because we hear, you know, they're now so closely identified. You know, Thor is so closely identified with Chris Hemsworth, and Stark with Robert Downey Jr. But I'm trying to make a few observations here. Yeah, Thor, I mean, it's a status thing. And in terms of, I mean, and maybe that's why comic book stuff's interesting to look at, because it's almost caricature. Thor is pompous. So his language, and he always thinks he's better than everyone. So, you know, you speak of chaos, yet you court, you speak of control, yet you court chaos.
But there's a reason why they got Ken Branagh to direct the first Thor movie.
Yeah.
They wanted to pull off faux Shakespeare, like pronouncements.
You know, and that's what Thor does, other than when he needs to say the plot line of located the Tesseract. Like, I mean, that's just him switching into purely feeding the plot. But they're, you know, you people are so petty and tiny. And the reason that "and tiny" is funny is because "so petty" is this high status word to do with his pompous language, and then buttoning it with the "and tiny" is kind of a little bit of a drop of status. And I guess, yeah, and I was going to say, I guess the thing with Steve Rogers is that he is from like the 1950s, so he's going to speak more of that era. And, you know, that's the contrast with him with...
Does he, though? He doesn't, like, call anyone Daddy-O or anything like that. Where Steve Rogers, I feel like it's not in his language, per se, that it says, I'm from the 50s, but it's in his perspective, you know, that there is, you know, his challenges. There is good and there is evil. There are Americans and there are Nazis, you know, that there's no grey.
It's almost like with each of the characters in the scene, you say, I mean, because it's an action movie and because, you know, there is, as you say, things are so compressed because you have so little time, because so much of the story is really about, you know, when you watch the clip and you look at this, you know, scene, what's the underlying subtext of the scene is that there is that exploding device that's being fired, and, you know, when's the bomb going to go off? So what you're really interested in is actually when is the bomb going to explode, and which is, you know, a great classic cinematic, you know.
So that's the key. If you want to do exposition, have a bomb just sitting there.
Is it the time bomb of the Avengers, or is it the time bomb of the
actual time bomb?
But that's fine. What the characters are is also, they're kind of types. You know, you've got to characterize them very quickly. And, you know, you can look at the scene in the Thor, he says pompous, and Steve is kind of
Boy Scout
integrity.
Yeah,
you know, he's like Mr. Integrity. And then if you look at Tony, he's like he's Mr. Insolence. You know, everything he says is insolent. It's kind of rather slimy and wheedling, and, you know, he's very everything he says makes you want to thump him in the face. You know, and that's what he is. And then Banner is this kind of confused, you know, moralist.
And he's got very similar written on the page, very similar to the William. Well, not very similar, but there is similarities between how Williams written in Notting Hill and how Banner's written here. A lot of ellipses, commas, a lot more convoluted.
Repeated
kind of
words. So it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, it's impressive to see well, I mean, it's not going to be vastly different from the page to the film, but you can read their performance on the page, which I think is what we're trying to get to with this episode of Draft Zero. But he certainly is one of the characters that talks for the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And he's almost like a Greek chorus kind of character. He's sort of commentating on the action.
Yeah, within his speech, he disagrees with himself. It's like, would I be a team? No. We're a chemical mixture makes chaos. We're a time bomb. Again, it's like these three. Again, he's speaking in threes, within that, he's disagreeing with himself and contradicting himself. We're a team. No, we're not. He's answering his own questions. He's kind of enclosed in his own world, and he's not really in. He doesn't associate or relate to the other characters in the story as much. He's and it's shown by the fact that he almost kind of like explodes and turns into, turns to the Hulk halfway through the scene, because everything is internalized with him. He's not actually, even though he's talking, he's not really expressing to other, he's not really in a conversation. The conversation he's in is kind of with himself. And he tells these, he's the only one in the scene to tell stories about, I got low, I didn't see the end, so I put a bullet in my mouth, other people spit it out, so I moved on. He's like telling his life story in the middle of a scene where, they're all working out what they're going to do and, what action they should take. So he's kind of, he's not in, as it were, the world of action. And that's interesting. So all the other characters in the world of action have short sentences because that's what you do in the world of action. This character is kind of withdrawn from it, has longer speeches, longer sentences. He's not really addressing his dialogue is not about what's happening right now. He quite quickly goes away from, he abstracts, if you like, very, 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 very readily from all of this. And so he provides, in dialogue terms, a really nice counterpointed position in relation to the other characters who talk very directly to each other about things.
The interesting thing about Banner, because he's a type and we know he's a scientist, the language that he chooses, or that Whedon's choose to use with Banner, he uses a metaphor that is scientific. We're a chemical mixture time bomb, I think even that is just a very good example of that. Well, Steve is like, I know guys worth more than 10 of you, that soldier thing, the sacrifice play, to lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you. Like, it's soldier speak, we can identify who these are. And, I think what's interesting about Tony is Steve's asking a lot of questions. Tony is answering in statements. There is that a hero, I like you. His answer is still everything special about you came out of a bottle.
But one thing I would like to point out about that is Tony's 3 previous lines have been quips. Like, there's no better way of putting it that they've been quips. But finally, that he says more than one sentence in a row is in response to Steve saying, you better stop pretending to be the hero. And in the parenthetical under Tony, it says, that did it. Yeah. So something has prompted him, like he's made a decision, Whedon has made a decision for him to actually speak longer and not just deliver a quip, but actually try and hurt. Because that's the other thing, is that the things that he's been saying before have been to try and, I guess, get laughs. They haven't been attacks per se, whereas this is an attack on Steve. And, and he, again, a hero, question mark, like you, question mark, you're a lab rat, Rogers.
And the dialogue links it, pretending to be a hero, Steve ends, Tony's line starts with a hero. So that's something hopefully we'll get into in our follow-up episode, but that's a specific example of 2 lines of dialogue completely linking
to each other,
hooking into each other. Because Tony didn't have to say that, but you better stop pretending to be a hero, and Tony could have just gone, you're a lab rat, or as a laboratory experiments in the clip. But they've deliberately hooked them together, probably to show that that was the thing that got to Tony Stark, is the line about the hero. By him repeating it, it's actually revealing to the audience that was the thing that knocked him off. And this feels like high school English studying poetry, but going back to the Banner speech, which I found really affecting, that I didn't see an end, so I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out. I think what's really interesting is that it's the use of the so, bullet, mouth. They're all kind of long O sounds, and then other guy, same thing, and then spit it out. The consonants kind of gives it this real punctuation that obviously Mark Ruffalo is able to play up in his performance, but it's there on the page and you can even read it.
But it's interesting that for me, it's even this scene, like I say, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting for character, because it's basically laying the groundwork for the emotional journey or the character journey of Bruce Banner, saying, what makes him angry, how does he keep in control, like what is his relationship with the Hulk. It's got Tony is laying down Tony's
desire to be a hero.
Well, yeah, a desire to be a hero, and also his challenge to be a hero, because it's being said, again, it's like his flaw is being put in the mouth of another character. And Steve, the whole thing, the lead into this scene that we sadly didn't get in the clip, maybe we'll be able to, Steve's, black and white, Mr. Integrity, but he's just found that the team he's playing on is using, it essentially has atomic weapons on board, or chemical weapons. It has a bad thing that he disagrees with and is having to question his own.
I mean, I think that complex position that Steve is in, or the contrast between, as it were, the simple rules of the world Steve is in and the complex world he's actually in, is very nicely done in the line between Steve and Tony, where he says, "Big man in a suit of armor, take that off. What are you?" Simple words, simple statement, and then the reply that Tony gives is genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. These are, in some ways, a playboy, genius, philanthropist. They're kind of, these words they're not exactly contradictory. They're not contradicting each other, but they're not complementary. And what Tony's reply is, first of all, they're long words. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist is the longest word in the scene. So
4 syllables.
And it's kind of in Tony's reply to Steve's kind of simple statement of morality is kind of implicitly saying the world is more complicated than your analysis allows. And my words are also more complicated than yours. And it's that contrast between the simple words of a 1940s morality and these more complex words of a 21st century morality, where things are really complicated and difficult to decode, to deconstruct. And I think, again, it's no accident. Tony could come up, as you say, with a clever quip at that point. The writer could have put in a clever little phrase, but he chooses, and again, it's the rhythm of it: genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. And
the choice of the order of that word, of those 4 words, would have been very carefully.
Because if you did it the other way around, exactly. If you did it the other way around, if he just said, "Okay, big man in a suit of armor, take that off. What are you?" and he replied, "Philanthropist, playboy, billionaire, genius," that's a direct challenge. It's like saying, "I'm better than you." So he's not, to end with genius is a kind of declarative, this "I'm great and you're not" kind of sentence. And so again, the decision of which words come in what order are really important. Philanthropist is the last word in this list of things he is. Philanthropist is a good thing. So he puts, as it were, the last thing, which is the most morally approvable thing that he is.
And the longest word.
And the longest word at the end of the sentence. And it is like you say, you suddenly think this is ridiculous to go into this level of detail of this, but actually you can imagine, the number of times when you're actually shooting something and talking with the actor and rehearsing, where decisions about which words come in what order are absolutely crucial, because it tells you, the thing that Tony wants to leave Steve with is, "I'm a philanthropist." That's the last thing he wants him to take away, and that tells you something about the character. That he has a moral aspect, and that chimes in with the notion of pretending to be a hero, and it's like which way it gets him, because Tony does see himself as having a moral cause, that he is a fighter for justice and truth. He is not a fake. And what he's sensitive to is the notion, because he's so rich and because he's a billionaire and because he's a playboy, everyone says, "Well, you're a fake." And when he says, when that accusation is pretending to be a hero, is getting straight to the heart of what Tony Stark is really, shies away or presses his button, because he is a genuine hero who dresses up his genuine moral belief in a kind of postmodern cynicism, where he likes to show himself off as being, actually, I'm just a tosser who goes around in a suit, but in fact that hides a kind of a real simplicity and a moral virtue that is kind of similar to Steve's. He's no less of a moralist than Steve is, but he disguises it more. He wears a suit.
It's interesting. It's just interesting because that relationship is like all the sequels are coming out of it. The whole Avengers Civil War is Steve versus Tony, and you can see it right there, that kind of idea that 1940s morality versus 21st century morality.
And that's what the Winter Soldier is. Like, Steve's journey, this situation in this scene is played out over the whole of the Winter Soldier, which is the Captain America 2. But I guess what I wanted to, one of the reasons why I wanted to look at this is to just show people that we aren't limited to talking about these things in two people context, in context of films like Remains of the Day and stuff like that. It's the reason why these lines work, why they zing, why the dialogue interplay is so great is because it is coming from the character's perspective and it is characterizing them.
It's exposition of character. It's revealing character, and then I mean this is kind of a good scene to end with because it was types. But you can see how you can then burrow that down. William is a guy that's indecisive, so his language is indecisive, you know. And Vidi is a guy that is used to having power and needs to reaffirm his power, so he uses question like "Do you understand me?" as a way of reaffirming his power. But that also ties into his fear of panic attacks. And weirdly, think about it, because it's that even his repetition of panic attacks. What a panic attack! You know, he actually sounds panicked by saying panic. Like it's actually demonstrating. You know, the dialogue is revealing character and actually is dramatizing it too. And there is that not perception, but there is always that. Trying to think of the myth, the idea that dialogue can't be action. You know, there is. You know, you write the screenplay, then you add the dialogue, to paraphrase Hitchcock. But I think what we're showing here is that the dialogue, by adding the dialogue, you're actually revealing what's going on underneath. It may, you know.
And the analyze that scene, it's all action in dialogue. It's the passing of a baton back and forth about who's in control of themselves and of the scene and of the interaction. And what I like about this particular scene is I would have been really interested to see how the scene played out if they hadn't had the beep, beep, beep of the computer and the time bomb go off. Like, it would have been quite fascinating to see how this played out.
I mean, what's interesting when you look at this scene also, you get the impression that it's kind of, because when you're writing this kind of action film, it's so difficult. I mean, the craft in this scene is really remarkable. It's not, none of these things are, in these kinds of scenes, are as evident as if you're looking at Remains of the Day or Richard Curtis, where you have more time, because it's kind of, the stories are about the interaction between people. It's really about the relationships. It's more as a character-based story. When you have an action story like this, you look at this and you think, okay, how would you write this? How would you really set out to write this? How would you work it out for yourself? And it seems to me that what this reads like, when you look at it and its finished form, is a kind of boiled down essence of a scene that first started out 8 pages long. You know, where you literally look at it and you go, okay, who are these characters? What are they feeling and thinking about? Where are they? And you'd write, you know, exchanges and, you know, in order just to identify for yourself the essence of what it is. You know, what's the absolutely essential thing that we have to show about Banner in this scene and nothing else. And then as you rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, you boil and boil and boil. And what you get at the end is a kind of juice. You know, when you make great jus, the French have this word for it. You know, you get a cow and you boil it in a bath, you know, or half a swimming pool. And then at the end, when you've boiled it all, you're left with like a teaspoonful of jus. And that's the absolute quintessence of the flavour that you want. And it seems to me this kind of writing is about that. Now, whether the writer does this in their head and literally just thinks and thinks and thinks, then comes out in this compressed way. I think with practice, you probably can do that. But I think, you know, it's a really good example of, you know, how can you get this level of intensity of the scene being only about what it has to be about and nothing else. And the dialogue being so laconic and so spare, and yet doing the job. I think it's about rewriting and rewriting, and every rewrite comes a little bit shorter, until it gets so short it doesn't make sense. Then you expand it a little bit back out again to get the right level.
I do like that.
Boiled away, isn't it?
I love that point in screenwriting where I've gone to a draft where people start saying you need more, not less, because you've just hacked it back to that point.
I've occasionally kept that in my head, you know, that idea of, oh, you know, you're cutting your script, cut all the fat, and just get it down to the meat, and you're like, but in meat, fat is where the flavour is.
Absolutely.
It's being careful so it's not too fatty. You know,
vegetarians are just going, what are these people talking about? It's disgusting. There are cow baths.
Oh God, yes, this is not. But I mean, I was going to say it's like mushrooms and the sauces, the way that, you know, mushrooms bring something and they absorb the sauces, and that's kind of comes in protein. Why I am of all people talking about cooking as if I'm some kind of authority? I mean, that is kind of weirdly, not that we've talked about it, and something we can kind of maybe touch on the follow-up, is that idea that shared language is a way of showing groups, you know, technical vocabulary is a way of becoming part of your group. Oh, I know my inciting incidences and my third acts and my protagonist. I'm part of the in-group of screenwriters, right? you don't have to actually know what any of that shit means, and a lot of people don't.
Have you guys seen The Martian?
No, not yet.
Okay. One of the things that I really liked about it is, yes, they reduced really complex scientific thing to Hollywood babble, but not to like the usual kindergarten level. They left it at, let's say, I don't know, high school physics level.
They left you up there.
Well, no, they
Put a bit of fat in there.
They didn't care if everyone understood it or not, because that was what has to be true to the characters. And then like it helped that Matt Damon would have like a very self-deprecating, he would usually have at the end of each line, so basically this means I have to, live off this much meat for the, he's just said, they've had this huge line and he just sums it up in a joke. But yeah, I think what you're talking about, shared language, and I think we've seen it here, with
Notting Hill, yeah.
Notting Hill, we saw them talking like
Analyse
each
This.
other.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to our follow-up episode.
If we're going to set people, we're going to set ourselves another time where, okay, I'm a writer that doesn't feel that I'm necessarily good at character voice, all right, a way of getting into my characters. What is some things that we can do to, like, this stuff, we're looking at really amazing scenes written by really top writers at like doing really great stuff, right, in the final form. But most of the time, our stuff is going to look like shit for a long time, right? What is some stuff that we can do so at least that gap between what we want to achieve and what we are achieving can kind of close?
Well, I would say most of the time, look at the scene that we talked at the beginning about dividing it into two sides. There's the underlying dramatic structure of the scene, and there's the techniques of dialogue. First of all, your scene's never going to fly unless you've got the underlying stuff right. So you have to know what the action of the scene is, where it's going, who's driving the action of the scene, what decisions are made during the scene that push the action forward. So where are the moments, the beats in the scene where the action is moved? What's the question, if you like, that drives the plot of the scene? What is the main character of the scene, the protagonist of the scene, trying to achieve? What's their objective in the scene, and where does that objective shift, either further towards getting it or further away from it? So you understand the underlying architecture. You have to know all that. Then you have to say to yourself that a scene that has too much, as it were, text, as opposed to subtext, is a scene that's always going to be very flat and difficult to make work. Mostly, characters spend most of the times in scenes not talking about the truth, except in particular case like maybe the Avengers here, where we're coming to a crisis and the shit is hitting the fan as far as the character, they're speaking truth to each other about what they think about each other. Most of the time,
only Banner really gets to the point. I mean, they're speaking about the truth about what they think about each other, but
not themselves.
Yeah, not themselves. So where's the subtext? What's the subtext in your scene? And so as it were, what's the dynamic movement of the action in the scene? What's the subtext of the scene? And when does the subtext come above the surface? When in the scene do the characters say absolutely the truth with no elaboration, and that's exactly what they think? And that answer should be at specific moments that you have designed that are rare, and therefore peak moments in the scene. Yeah. That's my understanding of the underlying stuff. Now, think about your characters. What are the individual voices your characters have? What are the social contexts? What's their background? Why would they talk the way they talk? Where were they educated? What are their attitudes, to the people they're talking to? Where is who has the control of the power in the scene? Which may not be the same as the person who controls the action. How does the audience understand who the most powerful person is? When does the power shift? And what happens when that power shifts, and how does the dialogue reveal that? When are people being truthful and when are they lying? And when they're lying to themselves, not being honest to themselves, their language will become more ornate. It will act as a kind of smokescreen. When they're being truthful, it tends to be simplified. When people are being truthful to each other, the language will be simpler. What kind of words would these people use, and how do you pattern and rhythmically organize the character so they have a kind of music to them? So think about, if they're a gentle, kind of educated or meandering kind of character, how will the language express that? And where would they go? Where would you go against that pattern of behavior? What makes people jerk out of their normal patterns of speaking? What might happen in the scene that would do that? So you have to get a sense of the overall nature of the person and a sense of, therefore, the way that they would talk. And then within that, look at the way your scene runs with your various speeches and say, well, if it all looks a bit samey in the sense that people are tending to talk about the same amount, the sentences are tending to be about the same length, how does the length of the sentences reflect as with the pace and movement of the story within the scene? And so you need to start varying the sentence length. Even within the context of however long or short these people's sentences are, if it's a person who tends to talk in short sentences, make those sentences shorter at some point and longer than at some point. So start to vary that. And if they're speaking in relatively long sentences, again, how does it move around? Do you have a kind of patterned rhythm of the way the characters are speaking? We'll probably talk more about this later in the second one. But actually, how do they bounce off each other? What kind of, if one character is a kind of music to their voice, what happens when the other instrument comes in? What effect does that have? And how do they play? And if you have 2 or 3 characters, how do those kind of patterns and rhythms bounce off each other? I always say to writers, think of your characters and your story as different instruments in an orchestra. So what instrument, think of each of your characters, and what instrument characterizes them? Are they a bassoon, a flute, a violin, a trumpet? What are they? And then, when do they play? And then think of, that, which makes you start thinking of their voices as sounds rather than collections of words which mean something. Because I think you've got to always have in your head this notion that there's what people say, and there's the sound they make when they're saying it. And the audience is as interested in the sound they make as they're saying it as they are in what they say. So what you're writing dialogue for is not just to have them say things, but you're also having them make a sound. And that sound is really crucial to the audience's enjoyment of the character.
There's a visual corollary or analogy to that where apparently, because I'm doing a whole lot of research into how our brains think for my current script, apparently whenever we look at something, we're only actually interpreting new information of about 4%. And 96% is constructed from what we've previously seen, what we're assuming it's unsaying. And from cinematic purposes, the reason why you always want eyes focus is because most detail that we store about any person is around the eyes.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
That's good stuff, Stephen. Thank you.
Till next time.
Until next time.
Pleasure. Always.
All right.
Done. Thank you. If you dug this podcast, please subscribe and rate us on iTunes. If you want to argue with Stu or myself, you can find many ways of contacting us at www.draft-0.com. And now for Backmatter.
There is this perception, like when I was thinking that I was weak at dialogue, I started reading a lot of plays because I was like, what is a play but just dialogue? Does screen storytelling dialogue have its origins in theatre, or is it actually something else?
I would argue strongly that it's not. The movies were silent before they were talking. So, and it's really important to understand this, I think, in thinking about dialogue, is that when movies started, when narrative cinema started, it was silent. There was no dialogue. And people were telling stories without the necessity of dialogue, because technically it was impossible to have it. And then when dialogue kind of started coming into screen stories, cinema stories, it came in kind of surprising ways, or ways that we don't think about. It came in through intertitles. So they didn't hear characters speak for quite a long time. And then when characters did speak, again, technically there were quite a lot of adjustments that were made around the end of the 20s and 30s in order to allow sound to be recorded properly. And there were all sorts of intermediate stages where you couldn't move the camera around very much because the sound of the film going through the shutter was too loud, and so you had to make a soundproof box and put the camera in the box. So what then happened was you filmed theatrical shows. The Marx Brothers, for example, were in their heyday at the early days of sound because they took the Marx Brothers stage shows and filmed them. So the first introduction of sound was a very, if you like, the Marx Brothers, this kind of virtuoso dialogue, this kind of fast patter, kind of Broadway speak, and these kind of witticisms and clever wit, because when you're standing still on the stage and you're entertaining an audience, if you're not doing anything, your conversation has to be very entertaining, very busy, and that's why the Marx Brothers conversation is so busy. But then when you can move a camera around, then it's not necessary to have a character who is, as it were, holding the story with the way they speak. And in fact, in some ways, it becomes a problem if you have a character that's holding the story the way they speak, because the cinematic impulse is to move the camera around, to cut, to tell the story in a complex visual way, using sound as an accompanying technique, not as the primary technique. Whereas in the theatre, you could argue that dialogue is almost the primary method of communication. You know, that the character speaking is really more than 50% of what it is. I mean, that's, again, it's a massive generalization, but broadly speaking, you could hold that.
Well,
Things change.
Bo Willimon, the creator and showrunner of House of Cards, he deliberately hires, for his writer's room, a lot more playwrights than screenwriters, because of their ability to maintain an audience's interest over a great length of a scene. I mean, and it's not just dialogue, it's the interplay between two people or more people, but really it's about the communication between the characters that you're watching.
As expressed through dialogue.
Yes, and how to maintain interest through that and little else.
It also means, of course, when we're talking about dialogue, we talk about dialogue in, for example, talk about dialogue in television as opposed to dialogue in cinema. You know, dialogue started in cinema when cinema is more visually expressed than television. So television is somewhere between, if you like, theatre and cinema. So television dialogue is somewhere between theatre dialogue and cinema dialogue. So whereas in cinema, dialogue is nowhere near as important as it is in television, where the story tends to be carried on the dialogue a lot more than it is in cinema.
Radio with pictures.
Yeah, when we're thinking of dialogue, we talk about, as if we can, you can interchange cinema dialogue for television dialogue, but in fact the weight is quite different. Okay. And then even within television, you can say certain kinds of television is more, as it were, cinematic, where there's less carried on the dialogue, and other kinds of television are more, theatrical in that sense.
I made that flippant comment about radio with pictures, but that is a theory, if not a fact, I have to find the reference, that the idea behind soap operas was that it was a story that you would tell through sound. So back in the day, housewives could turn on they could turn on their TV and leave it on while they do their housework or whatever, and then can still follow the story. And I think that is an interesting test. If you go and put on Young and the Restless and stand in the other room, you can still kind of follow what's going on. But that would be a lot harder with, say, Breaking Bad or The Sopranos, or Mad Men, like shows that really push the kind of visual poetic aspect.
Yeah.